Welcome to our home in sunny Escondido. I'm standing in the backyard of a home we bought 21 years ago, and you're looking at the outside of my dedicated woodworking shop that didn't exist when we bought the home. There was a cavity behind the garage and off to the right side of the master bedroom that, to me, provided a perfect footprint for a future woodworking shop. And I immediately called to my wife and had her come back, and I said, Lina, you're standing in the middle of my future wood shop. And now I'd like to take you inside and tell you a little bit more about its history. I spent nearly 2 years visiting other shops and looking in books and other manuals on what it takes to build a good shop. And my concern was lighting, comfort, the ease in cleaning, the noise of vacuums, and certain other aspects. And I feel like I have achieved all of my goals in building this. First of all, the only part that I did not have much to do with was the laying of the slab. Underneath this pergola-type flooring is a typical concrete slab. In addition to whatever natural light I could get from the windows, I also wanted a dual lighting system in the shop with respect to fluorescence versus incandescent lighting, such as the light that I just turned on over the drill press. And as you tour the shop, you'll see that I've done that over other workstations too. The other thing that I really spent a lot of time planning was the electrical hookups. As you go through the shop, you may notice that in two sections of the shop, near principal bench type fixtures, I have floor outlets. I happen to have a prohibition about a lot of wires running around because that represents a safety problem. The other outlets that you see here, you'll see generally two double gang outlets side by side. Each pair of outlets are controlled by a separate breaker, so I'm never overloading a 20 amp breaker that controls my power tools. I have a port where I keep the extra wire secured. If you look across this wall of cabinets here, each of these cabinets is dedicated to a certain type of tool. For example, next to my drill press, I have all my drill bits, including my Forstner drill bits and other devices. So I don't have to travel around to find them. Right near the back of the existing garage, there's several cabinets, and inside one of those cabinets, I installed a standard dust collection machine, instead of the noise that I witness or experience when I turn on my vacuum system. Not too bad, is it? Another one of my favorite storage areas is the storage of anything having to do with my bench routing system. The top drawer being 1/2 inch shank and the bottom drawer being bits with the 1/4 inch shank. And I have them pretty much labeled based on pictures that I took off of the packaging. Another thing that might seem insignificant to the casual observer, but to anybody who's used a table saw to saw extra large or long items, is some sort of a support system coming off the blade, and also the support system, the width lateral part, where all I need to do is change the position of this fence system, because this is a double duty fence that was once featured, after I built it, was featured in Wood magazine, and it's really been handy. One side of it is my fence for my router. The other, which can go all the way down to the end of the workbench, is my fence for the table saw. And this part of my table saw moves around, so I don't have any support problems. The way I designed and built this bench adjacent to my chop saw, my miter saw, was twofold. One, I wanted a better than average work surface for doing drilling on my drill press, so I can raise and lower this system easily with the crank underneath. But just as important, it can become the extension of wood that needs support on both sides of the blade when I'm cutting extra long stock. And the fences associated with this are all adjustable, so I can have the amount of support that I need both laterally and horizontally. Over on this side of the shop is one of my favorite tool storage areas. Again, I like to keep things as dust-free as possible, so when I'm not using anything here or when I'm stirring up the dust quite a bit, I close the doors and things stay relatively clean. This slides back and forth, revealing a little bit of additional storage in the back. What I consider the ugly part of pegboard is hidden most of the time because these doors are closed and the tools are kept clean. Much is the same for this tool storage that you see right next door. Over here is storage for most of my clamps, except for the extra big clamps. Large clamps, followed by small clamps, and finding my medium-sized clamps, which I use most often. Bottom drawer has some of my jigs, like my Craig jig and the handheld router that I use most frequently, and a few other items. And the other use is I doubled the door system so that the doors on this side are folding doors. The doors on the other side are typical hollow core doors leading into the garage, and they can be opened just by releasing this bolt. But as you can see, it gives a tremendous amount of storage for large clamps and other long tools that won't fit in a typical drawer or other storage area. The other thing I did to maximize the use of my workbench here is with this planer here. I have it set up right now so that I can move this fence back and plane large long items all the way through. When it's in the way, when cutting extra long stuff off of the other saw, all I have to do after disconnecting the vacuum system is remove this, slide it out of the way, put the spacer up here, and now it's completely out of the way for when I'm using that saw to cut extra long items. Even though we live in sunny Escondido and we have relatively mellow weather, we do have some very, very cold mornings here in the winter. And when I built the shop, I acquired a used wood burning stove, and it's very handy to burn the unusable scraps that exist after doing certain projects. So that stove has been a tremendous value. The other thing is that it does get up to around 100 degrees on a nice sunny summer day, and I put an air conditioning system in the closet where I keep my vacuum tools. And so on a very hot day, this will cool off the shop in about 10 minutes and make it very comfortable for anybody working out here. What you may have noticed is that I have at least 2 sanding devices on my workbench here. What you didn't see was my favorite sanding device, which I keep in this cabinet because it takes up quite a bit of space. So when I need it, I open it up, make sure it's properly supported, and away we go. One of the questions that I'm frequently asked is, what do you build? I have built a tremendous number of children's toys. Most of the furniture in our home is built here in the shop. I love building custom furniture and other custom items. I get a lot of pleasure out of it, particularly when I'm attending a birthday party and presenting something like this to one of the grandchildren. Us left-handed people are considered to be somewhat creative, and so I installed my favorite mirror over the wash basin. You can make any kind of humor you want out of that, and I'll leave it at that. So you may have noticed the humorous plaque on the wall there. One of my favorite t-shirts is one that says, "Measure once and pound into place." My email address is right down here, and so feel free to get in touch. I'm retired, so we're home most of the time unless we're traveling east to visit relatives and family. So thank you for visiting via the internet, and I look forward to meeting some of you. I made it so I can control the dust collection system remotely by pushing a button, just like that. And you'll notice that there's hardly any noise associated with the vacuum system. It makes it very pleasant.
I don't think it turned on.
You can cut for a second.